we're celebrating his 57th anniversary of his naval commission.
Yeah, Tim. Hey!
Before we start with some words of how much you have meant to all of us, I would like to ask my cousin Matt, who's an admiral in the Navy, to explain what a Navy commission is first.
Okay.
And then we'll take from there.
All right.
Okay, how many people know what a Navy commissioning is? I do. Okay, I don't need to say it. Okay, everybody knows. No. 57 years ago, I asked you to think where you were. Some of you were. A majority of our U.S. Navy's traditions stem from our tight coupling and roots from our British Royal Navy teammates. And commissioning of an officer that brings together his or her, at that time his, now it's his and her, and it should be, right? The fact that the individual's character, behavior, and inner being, coupled with competence, focus, and mission execution, and senior leadership's recognition of that individual to be able to lead, not just follow and not just manage, but truly lead human beings together, motivating them, supporting them, developing them, and holding themselves and the individual accountable. So we, thousands of times a day, we commission individuals into our military service, not just the best service, the United States Navy, but also the United States Marine Corps, United States Air Force, United States Army, and our Coast Guardsmen around the world. And commissioning is a true inflection point in an individual's career. And that is a transformation from their personal focus to something that's bigger than them. We call it service before self. And my uncle, Tim Gorman, and everybody has their connection to Captain Gorman, his commissioning 57 years ago is one of the reasons why I stand here today continuing to serve this great country in our United States Navy. I couldn't be prouder to be his nephew. So there's commissioning.
And I think, being raised by someone who was a Navy officer, so retired Navy officer, nothing was ever good enough. Everything had to be perfect, and I think his example of do it and do it again and get it right, and just make sure that whatever you're doing, you just do the best you can, and his example of courage and honesty and integrity and just his leadership in the family, but also his service, which I didn't really appreciate when I was a kid, and he was gone, a couple of weeks, a year in the reserves, and what it means to serve this country. And now I appreciate it a lot more. So I just wanted to say thank you for your example and being the leader of this family, and love you so much.
Go Maureen! Dad has always been a great example of what to do and what to do well. And he definitely taught me, as Tara said, that there's good and there's even better. And I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. Dad was a great example for all of us growing up because he was open, loving, taught us love of country and respect for other people and ourselves and how to do things right. And he was always, he's just an amazing example of how to treat other people well and how to do things exceptionally well. And I feel that I'm a better person for having a father that was in the Navy. I really do. He's,
son, I never really, I don't know if I should say had the pleasure to, or got to experience sort of the harsher side of my grandfather. Because he was always the granddad, and granddads always, they're nicer than when they were parents. So I kind of picked up. But I've heard the stories, and they seem rough. But the thing that the common denominator between the experience as one of his kids and one of his grandchildren that I've realized is that the respect you gain for other people just by being around him and kind of learning through his example, and the respect you gain for the people who serve and this country. And that's really kind of what I've always, one of the many things I've always looked up to him for, is his service and his sort of undying patriotism.
I never tire of hearing my dad's Navy stories. Even if I hear the same one that I heard 30 years ago, it's just fascinating to me what he did during his service. So thank you, Dad.
Thank you.
Tell me your stories.
You might be sorry you said that.
As the Navy wife, I want to say what Maureen said was there's just, what'd you say, good and not good enough.
No,
No, that's my theory, is there's good and there's not good enough. It's okay. It's okay. You know, it does not have to be perfect. And in our first years of the marriage, we were in the Navy for 3 years and we moved 8 times. And we had nothing but wedding gifts and baby stuff by the time it was over. So it's so nice to be in one place and have our daughters here and wish our son was here and our grandkids. So thank you, Tara, for doing this.
Okay.
Go Navy!
I will turn it back. Does anybody else have anything they want to say?
No, just a
Sister?
toast to Tim.
Okay.
To Tim.
All right, let's,
Tim.
I'm gonna pass the microphone back to Admiral Matt.
Where's that moment?
Right here.
All right.
Can I ask you just to use this way?
Yeah.
So folks, we're gonna do something that maybe some of you have seen before. No, you get to come right here. Yeah. But don't touch me. Please. No, I'm just kidding. We need another drink. So back to the commissioning. When an officer is commissioned into this, in our military service, in this case, the United States Navy, he or she sets out on their career. And as they go through their career, they're recognized for their potential, their leadership, their engagement, their honesty, their integrity, and they approach the next rank. And there's a selection board. It is not a foregone conclusion. We call it best and fully qualified. And it's a very thorough process. And there are between 40 and 50% not selected. So that means you really represent an incredible core of leaders as you move forward. So Uncle Tim, Ensign, Lieutenant JG, Lieutenant Commander, Commander, Captain, United States Navy. 6 promotions. 6. There's only 3 more above that. Captain Gorman has stated his loyalty to this great country and to each and every one of us 6 dedicated times. And there are thousands of Americans that do that every day. And it's called taking the oath and reaffirming the oath. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to give you a snapshot of what that oath is. And then I'm going to make this old man do it one more time.
Alright.
That oath that we recite pledges an allegiance and faith, not to a human being, not to a person, not to a statue or a building, like some of our very tried and true and very good coalition partners, but truly to an ideal, to a set of ideals that our forefathers and our founding fathers put into the Constitution of the United States, which all of us that are here right now bear witness only 2 to 3 miles away from here in the archives. And so what I want to do is I want to have my uncle, your friend, husband, I could go down the whole thing, recite this oath one more time on his 57th anniversary. Are you ready?
I am.
All right, here we go. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your full name.
I, Timothy John Gorman,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic.
that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservations
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully
and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office
of the office
on which
on which
I am about
I am about
to enter.
to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Captain. The mic is all yours, Captain.
I'm actually amazed. I had no idea. Had no idea that I've thought of a lot of things. 57 years ago, I had no idea I'd be standing next to this lovely Navy wife, this lovely woman, and being the father of 3 kids and 5 grandchildren, and have so many great recollections, which include you and many others in our lives. I could, as Maureen said, I have a lot of stories, but I won't. It's going to be spring by the time I finish them. But I think there are a couple things. The faith that we have collectively, and I think I have, and not only in our country and our fellow men and women, but also in the God that I think lets us steer these courses in our lives. And it's amazing, if you will, the little things that you do, supposedly little, that change your whole life forever. So I'm going to go to a little lighter note. Why did I join the Navy? I was in the Army when I was in college. And Mary's brother, John, said to me, "Why don't you think about officer candidate school?" I said, "Oh, why should I?" He said, "Well, I think it's a better life and you enjoy it more." So my mother worked for the Navy at the Naval Medical Center. She typed John Kennedy's autopsy, by the way. She was a staunch Navy supporter. So I called the Army, because I was in the Army. The Army said, "What you do is re-enlist for 2 more years, and we give you a test. If you pass the test, you're in." I said, "If I don't pass the test, you're in for 2 more years." I said, "Thank you." Called the Air Force. He said, "Come to Bowling Air Force Base for 5 days, and if you pass all the tests, you're in. You go to officer candidate school for the Air Force." I called the Navy. The Navy said, "You come down to E Street in the morning, we give you a physical. If you pass that in the afternoon, we give you a mental." Mental. Then we give you a physical. Sorry, got it backwards. Now, pass the mental, and then if you pass that, we give you the physical. I said, one day, not 2 years, not 5 days. So I went on down, I took the test, and he said, "Go to lunch." I went to lunch, I came back, "How did I do?" He says, "We've had a lot smarter, but you did pass." So, that's why I'm in the Navy. To my mother's dying day, she thought I was in the Navy because she had a lot to do with it. She did, but that wasn't the real reason. All right, jumping fast forward, and again, there are a lot of tales in between. Matt Winter was a midshipman doing his summer cruise. I was a newly appointed captain. I was with a group called Commander-in-Chief Atlantic Fleet down in Norfolk, and Matt's ship was in. So I decided to go down and see Matt on a Thursday in the summer to see, what we could do about going down to the Outer Banks for the weekend. I made a real tactical error. I left my office around 6 o'clock in the afternoon, 1800, and I walked down this pier. There were 4 ships tied up, 1 port, 1 starboard. I passed the first 2. What? I was in my uniform, right, sorry. I had a raincoat on with my insignias on my shoulder, and I could hear a collective sigh of relief as I passed the first 2 ships. I went to the 3rd ship on my right, my starboard side, if you would, and I came up and I said, oh shoot, I should have said I'm coming. And then the bell rings, ding, 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 Captain, United States Navy arriving. The executive officer comes running out. I asked permission to come aboard, it's granted. The executive officer comes running out, tucking his shirt into his trousers. Sir, didn't know you were coming. And I said, my mistake. I'd like to see Midshipman Winter. Yes, sir. So they got on the 1MC announcing system and said, Midshipman Winter to the quarterdeck on the double. On the double! And so all of a sudden, Midshipman Winter comes up and he didn't say, hey, Unc, how you doing? He said, sir, snap to. We saluted each other. And the XO said, would you like to use my stateroom, the wardroom? I said, no, we'll be behind the stacks, that'll be good. So I walked behind the stacks with Matt, and I said, Matt, thank you for carrying this out. My question to you, Midshipman, is when can you get off tomorrow to go to the beach? I can get off at noon. I said, noon? I'm a captain. I can't get off at noon. So we said, okay, you ready for this? He said, ready. We came back to the quarterdeck. Now the executive officer has his cap on. He's a little bit more squared away. And he said, okay, good to see you, Midshipman. Yes, sir. Salute, snap, salute. And I said, permission to leave the ship. Permission granted. Ding, 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 ding. Captain, United States Navy departing. I walked down the pier. Matt told me later went below, and the chief said, what the hell was going on? This captain from Washington D.C. now sickly and fleeing comes down and says, what are you into? Drugs, alcohol? What is it? He said, that's my uncle. We're going to the beach this weekend. Matt has learned his lesson well. He's a vice admiral, and he still doesn't have time to go to the beach. Like our captain doesn't have time to go to the beach, but he shouldn't do it. I'm going to stop with this. It's a life lesson. My first commanding officer was Captain Godek, Matt Godek. I was on a cargo ship, Polaris Resupply, and I was new, wet behind the ears, and we go to Holy Loch, Scotland. We offload all the stuff the nuclear subs would need. I had to watch. I was second assistant first lieutenant, and I was watching the guys, and I told them, I said, we're going to be in port 5 days. If you offload in 3, you got 2 days liberty. Offload in 4 days, you got 1 day. And these guys worked. They were good sailors. 60% of our sailors on that ship came right from the brig to go to sea. They were great sailors. They were lousy at port. They were getting fights and bars and everything. Anyway, I was looking down. There was a 3rd-class boatswain mate, Sims. And he looked up, Mr. Gorman, would you like to learn to use this forklift? And I used this story just yesterday as an example of somebody who was fretting. And I said, I'd love to. So I went down below, and I was turning that forklift around, making all things happen. And it got very quiet. One of the sailors started pointing upward. And here's Captain Godek looking down, and he says, with his finger, like, come up. I came up, and he said, Mr. Gorman, the Navy is not paying you to run a forklift. You're to manage the people who run the forklift. You understand that, sir? Fast forward, we're down in Guantanamo Bay, and we're supposed to get underway, and Mary just tapped me, means I'm telling too many stories too long. I'll tell you one thing. I was told by a senior chief, that's the top enlisted rank in the Navy. I said, Chief, how long before we can get underway? He says, well, we'll be ready in 15 minutes to button it up. And I said, I'll tell the captain. He says, no, sir. All due respect, tell the captain 45 minutes. You'll be a hero if we do it in 30. And I said, okay, good life lesson again. Yeah. So I went up, and there was a foul up the ship coming alongside, was not proper. And he was sitting on a little box on the wing of the bridge. And I'm talking to him like this, and he says, put your hands down. Same captain said, come up. I said, what? He says, do you realize that captain over there looks like I'm being lectured by an ensign? Put your hands down. And he said, I understand what you're saying. When were we ready to go? And it went from there. I learned so many little things, and it all happened because one conversation with Mary's brother Johnny. He said, why don't you think about going to Oxford this week? Thank you for everything. God bless you. And go Navy.
Love it.
And there'll be more tales to be told. It's inside. It's $5 an hour unless you want an autographed copy. It's $10.
All right, so one more thing before we go back inside. Diane Gamble has made a beautiful cake that has Dad's picture on it when he was in the Navy. It's in the living room, and next to that is a poster, so please take a moment and sign that. And have a great time. Anchors away.
Thank you.
Bravo.